I have to literally work. I have not mastered it at all. I have to learn to not say yes. And I've told myself, give yourself 24 hours and think it through. And I have failed every time. I go, oh yeah, man, I'm gonna make this work. Oh my God, I got 1 hour right there. And it doesn't have to be a big gig. It could be any gig. That's the crazy part.
Yeah.
It's just in my DNA to do this.
Hey everybody, it's Kirk Newman. This is the Staring at the World podcast. We're going to listen to part 2 with Kenny Aronoff. I hope you listen to part 1 because he's a crazy mofo. He tells lots of stories. We talked about his childhood. Now we're going to talk about more of being in the studio and what he learned. We're going to talk about his crazy schedule and his life and learning to balance or not balance things. So stay tuned. This is part 2, Staring at the World with Mr. Kenny Aronoff. So, I know this, and I know you talk about it in the book. The Mellencamp years are pretty tough. There's great times, there's celebration times. You're a team. It means you're a family. It means everything. It feels great. But eventually you hit a point where John has absolutely had it. He's burnt out. And you guys finish a tour, and he says, I'm quitting. Good luck.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do then?
Record with the BoDeans.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the things. But you become laser focused then on, like you say, what do I do now in the book? And you start playing as a session drummer, and you start building a network. Talk about that for a while.
Yeah. Well, the last concert was right in your hometown in Milwaukee at the Summerfest. And I was in shock. I literally... You guys, I was in shock. I didn't see it coming. So I've been working with the same guy for 8 years. You write songs, you arrange the songs, you record the songs, you do promo, then you rehearse for tour, you go on tour.
That's you give your life. You really give your lifetime to that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, totally. It was the band was first, and then I didn't see it coming. Makes sense that he was burnt out. Totally makes sense, but I didn't see it coming. So the first thing I do is I panic and go like, "Oh my God." It's like, I just got divorced. I got car payments, house payments, child support, expenses. I'm like, oh my God. And I figured out I had about 5 months worth of money saved to cover my nut for 5 months. And I'm like, wow. So the next morning I wake up and go, all right, I've been working with one rock star for 8 years. Now I'm going to go work with everybody else. That was my attitude. And so it was a slow build. It took about a year. I mean, I'll never forget. That year, I think it was December, that I get a call from you guys. And I remember I was in the shower. I still remember I was in the shower and I'm hearing the phone ring, and I've done about 8 records. I thought, wow, man, you're already turning it around. You're making enough money. It's happening. And all of a sudden I get the call from you guys, and it's like, hey, we're making this record. Would you be into coming up and playing on some tracks? I said, when? Like it was like Tuesday. I went, oh my God, that's awesome. I'm thinking, yeah, hell, you kidding me? It's December. Nobody, we're getting close to Christmas. I fly up there. It's like 9 degrees. It was it was so friggin' cold. Yeah. So for everybody's listening, this is the home record, the BoDeans home record. It was an old, like a warehouse brewery, maybe 8 stories high. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong. And the BoDeans had set up shop in basically this big old wooden, huge room or rooms. And they set up, the drums were up on a little stage, and they had mics. And what they did was they had some cameras up there. And the control room, the studio, was in a Ryder truck or a Hertz truck down on the street.
In the courtyard. There was a courtyard in the middle of the building, and they were down, ran the snake out the window down to the truck. And we were up there with the cameras in the warehouse. And it was like 2 degrees out.
Oh man, it was unbelievable.
But it felt really natural. you know.
Oh, it was awesome. It was amazing. Hell, one of the greatest songs I've ever recorded
Yeah,
was the song that we did, You Don't Get Much.
yeah,
And it was literally, it could have been 2 in the morning. And we'd been
it
doing,
was. Yeah.
yeah, and we'd been playing, what would we call it? Terminator ball. It was
Well,
like,
we called it ghetto ball, but yeah, it was basically you try to kill each other while you try to score a basket in the other room, which was
it was a,
crazy.
dude, it was crazy. We'd be on like a little bicycle with like a football helmet. You'd have the ball whipping it. Somebody would come across and hit you in the head, knock you off.
The only
It was
rule was there was no rules.
yeah, and so that was cool. And then I hear Kurt's doing this thing like the beginning to You Don't Get Much, and I'm inspired by it. And I get up on the drums and we start playing. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. That down there in the truck, they hit record,
Yeah,
and next thing you know, we've got that take.
yeah.
We were just it wasn't like
And we
let's record.
finished, and I pointed at it. I said, "That's like you took it out of my head." It was like that's exactly what I was looking for the song. And that's you talk about musicians and different personalities and stuff like that.
Yeah.
When you can find that, and the reason I've loved playing with you for so many years was when you can find that between people, that kind of
Yeah.
telepathic connection that you know what each other's doing and you connect on that level. It's a really special thing, you
It
know,
is.
and that can make playing music, playing in a band a really great thing, you know, and that energy, and that's what you bring to an audience then, and they join in, and it just creates
Yeah.
this amazing energy, and that's what you and I get addicted
Yep.
to and do for our entire
Yeah.
lives, and it's a
Yeah.
crazy, crazy thing. But anyways, he also, Mr. Kenny Aronoff, came in and played a show for us during that same time where we didn't even rehearse. You came
What?
into town, and the most we did was you came in the night before and we talked through the set. And then the next day we went and played for about 10,000 people on the lakefront and nailed it. I mean, it
Well,
was just incredible. I'd never experienced something like that in my life where a drummer could show up without a rehearsal,
Yeah.
go and play on a stage, you know, in front of people and not make a
Yeah.
mistake.
Hometown too.
Yeah.
Hometown. But that's because I write everything out. That's what the classical training helped.
Right.
I write everything out, and so I can get away with that a little bit more than somebody who doesn't write, because there wasn't a lot of time to prepare and memorize. So the writing it out and having the right tempos, and I program in my drum machine to get the right tempos, and
Yeah.
that makes a difference.
Oh, it
Huge.
did. It was incredible. And so after all that kind of happens and we do those records and you've kind of started stepping out, playing with lots of people, you also went back to University of Indiana and got to be a teacher for a while
Yeah.
and teach students there. Now, people are paying lots of money to send their kids to school. And what they're going to get here is like, wait a minute, I'm paying $40,000 and my son's going to go hang out with Kenny Aronoff for a while and play the drum set. How did you manage that?
Well, the reason why they brought me in was that Indiana University was known as a classical, they had a jazz program too. And they started realizing, wow, in order to compete with Berkeley, North Texas, and some of these other big schools, why not get Kenny Aronoff, who went through our program, the classical program? I was still living there. I was still in the Mellencamp band, and I was living there, and they thought, this is perfect. This guy, the classical department and the jazz department will respect this guy because he was, he graduated with high honors from this great school, and so that's why they asked me, and I was like, wow, I'm going to be on tour. I'm never going to have time. And they went, listen, you can make up lessons. That's what our school is based on, getting great performers that teach and allowing them to go out and perform. So I did. And I taught, I'll tell you, man, I had these kids, everybody talks about it. I had basically five students over the 3 or 4 years I was there. And I would have them on Back in Black by AC/DC for like 6 months. And they didn't get it. It was so simple, but they didn't get the feel. They didn't get the magic that makes that. And I said, if you can't play this, you'll never make it as a drummer in the real world, in the pop world or the recording world, and you got to be able to play like this, you know. And I said, you know, of course, I told the stories about how I was chasing after Billy Cobham, but what made me successful was the understanding how to play the drums that serve songs.
That's super zen of you to teach that. That's the wax on, wax off
Yeah,
Karate Kid method of teaching
yeah,
drums. But it's so true. I've seen great drummers that very same way. I've been to New York watching some young kid play crazy, and then I've seen like Steve Ferrone come up as a guest drummer and just zoom, bop, zoom, bop, and lay it down and just school the kid. And it's true. If you can't do that, you can't move on. And so you got to teach kids. That's a great lesson to be able to teach them in
that
everything.
was not easy. That wasn't easy. I realized I do not want to be. They actually offered me a job to run that department. I went, no, I just nah. I still like to. It's like to be like being. Do you want to be the player on the field? Or do you want to be the coach? I still want to be the player. It's just I don't want to be the coach.
Yeah, no. And you came back to us 1992-ish, 93-ish era. We're recording a record called Go Slow Down, and we hired you to come back and play with us again. Different studio setting, but one of the songs you recorded with us during that time was a song called Closer to Free, which went on to be a soundtrack later in 1996, got released part of a theme song for a show called Party of Five. And that song went on to be one of our biggest hits ever at all. I did want to mention to you, though, that even though that song only got up to a number 16, there was another drummer on that record who got to play a bunch of songs, and Idaho did get to number 1 on the AAA charts.
It did?
Just
wow. I didn't know that.
I do have some drumming skills there. If Kenny's not available and you need a completely different style,
That's incredible. You were on a number 1 hit as a drummer. Wow.
Yeah. I think it was up there for like 12 weeks or so.
Oh my God, that's incredible.
I'm bragging now. So enough of that crap. But the reason Kenny didn't play on that whole record, I just wanted to tell people, because this is a great story about being in the music industry, in the record business, was we recorded the whole record with Kenny. We sent it to the record company, and their opinion of it was, it sounds too good. It sounds too good. God. And we need to get some edge back. So I had to go set up some remnants of a drum kit. I didn't even have a drum kit there. So I pieced together some few pieces because I knew what they were looking for. And I played some simple beats that didn't sound so great. And so then they were happy. But the one track that we just refused to replace was Closer to Free. And which song goes on to be the biggest hit? Closer to Free.
Wow. That's interesting. So, God damn. So I had recorded all the songs on that record and then they replaced it with you. Is that what happened?
They wanted me to go back and make it sound crappier,
More raw.
More rootsy. And so that's what I had to do on that record, was to make it sound, which was great for me because, drums were always my first love. I ended up playing guitar. The same thing you were talking about earlier was, what do you do as a drummer? You got to write songs. So when I got out of high school, I bought a guitar to write songs because I figured you have to do this. And then 2 years later, I'm standing in a studio in LA with a guitar strapped on me with T-Bone Burnett saying, do another take. And I'm like, how did I get here? I love the drums. I love playing the drums.
Well, I'll tell you though, that was your destiny, because not only are you a great guitar player, a great songwriter, but an unbelievable singer. I mean, you guys, it's one thing to record, you can fix things, but Kurt's voice is impeccable. I've never heard him sing flat or sharp. And the other thing is incredible sense of time. You have
I'm brutal on drummers.
You just natural. I mean, you're either born with it or not. I like playing with click tracks because I don't trust my crazy emotions. And playing to a click track is like easy peasy for me. I love it. It's easy. I know how to make a click feel good, and I just, it's like anything else. You do it. if you
Yeah.
do it long enough, you get good at it. But anyway, yeah. So it's amazing. So playing with Kurt. So I always watch the lead singer. And if we're not on, well, now we've been playing with click, but if we're doing like a song and Kurt feels like he wants it to be a little bit faster, I just watch his foot and he'll be singing and playing, but he'll be tapping his foot to show that he wants it to get a little on top. And I just I'll increase it until he stops.
Communication.
So, yeah.
I want to move on to this. One of the major topics with Kenny Aronoff is that his amazing, energy and work ethic and the nonstop pace that you go at for so many years. And in the book, I was really struck by one story in particular that you told where you even questioned yourself about, were you pushing it too much? Can you tell everyone about the story when you were playing with Bob Seger at, I think, Hong Kong, and then you had to get back to the Mellencamp show in the States like a few hours later?
No, yeah, it was the other way around. I was on
All right.
with Bob Seger, and we had like 6 or 9 shows in Detroit, in Bob Seger's hometown. Now, Bob would this is an arena tour. Everything sold out, and it was big. And I got John's blessing to do the tour as long as we could finish his record somewhere on a break. But there was this other break where John was asked to do a corporate event where Polygram and all the other labels under Polygram. And so, look at U2 had done it the year before. Elton John had done it the year before. John had a new record coming out. So his management says, you got to do it. And John said, I don't want to go to Hong Kong.
Right.
And I think he was hoping I couldn't do it, but I found a way to do it. Ironically, the night before we had to fly, I was playing in Indianapolis at Market Square Arena with Seger. So I could then go home, wake up early in the morning, take a flight to LA and then to Hong Kong. But the problem is coming back after the show, ideally in Hong Kong, after the show, it would have been perfect if I could get on a plane that night and then I'd get into Detroit in the morning of the show with Bob Seger. Well, there were 2 possibilities. One, jump on somebody's corporate jet that was in there. Surely there's some corporate guy from record executive, or have them start this John's show 30 minutes earlier. Well, John had burnt so many bridges that they weren't going to adjust their schedule for him. That's for sure. Or at least the guy that was in charge was like, no friggin' way. And then the other thing was in Hong Kong, you can land corporate jets in Hong Kong, but you had to then take off. You can't leave them there. So I was screwed. Yeah. So ultimately what happened was I woke up the next morning, flew Hong Kong to Japan, Japan to Detroit, landed at about 2:45, sound checks at 4. You can't make it through customs and get to the palace in Detroit traffic. So our tour manager arranged a helicopter. So when I got through customs, I got met by somebody, takes me to the helicopter. We fly over the city. I landed outside the palace, went running in the dressing room, put my clothes on, got on stage, and I was there 5 minutes before the band.
And you're talking about this like it's normal somehow. I mean, if someone would walk up to me and say, tomorrow, can you go play a show in Hong Kong and then come back? And I'd be like, screw you, But my question to you is, Kenny, is there something wrong with you? Or something right with you that pushes you to think, wait a minute, I can do this. And then you do it.
Yeah, it's more that I want to do it. I don't know where it comes from. Maybe it's like, when you were a kid, you weren't getting the gigs you wanted. So I've still got that ingrained in me. It's like, I need to take every gig I can get. It's like, when you're trying to make it, you just say yes to everything. Dude, I've done this many times. I mean, I was on tour with Fogerty for 3.5 weeks in Europe. And I remember after the show, getting on the bus, driving to Frankfurt airport, waking up the next morning, Frankfurt, Amsterdam to Minneapolis, and go right from the airport to sound check with Sammy Hagar for a corporate gig that night. And yeah, I mean, it's a little bit tiring, but I get excited with the whole idea that I'm doing it. Yeah. It's just so cool.
And you can because you've developed not just the drumming skills, but like you mentioned, the writing the charts and
Yeah.
being able to see the song on that chart, flying from one city to the next, so that when you show
Yeah.
up, you've got the song in your head on that chart, even if you
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
Like someone who plays by ear, you just have to learn and learn and learn it. But this
Yeah.
way, you
Yeah.
could do something like that. And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but you've played with everybody, and it was easy when you were doing it in the studio in L.A. maybe, or New York to L.A. or something like that, and you're going from different sessions to a million different people. And I'm not kidding in this at all. It's the list of who Kenny's played with is really endless. But when you're starting to fly to China or Hong Kong and back to the States, you
Yeah.
wonder, are you pushing it a little bit? That's
Oh, yeah.
really insane.
Yeah. Especially, I mean, I just did one.
Do you think anyone
Uh,
else out there could do that, maintain that schedule? Do you think maybe that's just your gift?
It might be. I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody who does it like that. I mean, I haven't. There's probably maybe some people, but I haven't talked to them. I don't know who they are. Yeah. I mean, because really, it is risky. I mean, really, you could really. I mean,
And I
I
wanted to
mean,
ask, though, is it you think that pushing like that, it's probably 50-50, but is it a need to create or is it a need to feel like if I don't do this, somebody else, is going to get my
yeah.
gig? Or what is it, do you think, inside that pushes you like that?
I definitely don't want to miss an opportunity. I know that much. And if you added that somebody would back then, back long ago, not well, back a ways, I would think, oh my God, so someone's going to do my gig, and then I'm going to lose my place. Now I'm okay with that, because I believe that, like, well, if somebody really like it happened with John Fogerty many times where I couldn't do something, and they said they got booked, and I already was booked, and I'm not on retainer, so. And it's happened with you too,
Yeah.
where I have to just like, oh, I booked it because there was nothing booked. And so now you got to get somebody else. And then, in a lot of cases, you either have to make a decision. I'm going to stay with this person that's more that I can count on, or you know what? It's like such a difference between that person and Kenny. When I can get Kenny, I'll get Kenny.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. That's what happened with Fogerty for sure. And yeah, it's so yeah, I'm okay. Yeah, I have to literally work. I have not mastered it at all. I have to learn to not say yes. And I've told myself, give yourself 24 hours and think it through. And I have failed every time. I go, oh yeah, man, I'm gonna make this work. Oh my God, I got 1 hour right there. And it doesn't have to be a big gig. It could be any gig. That's
Yeah.
the crazy part.
Yeah, I know.
It's just in my DNA to do this.
Yeah. And it is. And I noticed, you're talking about, I was playing with Mellencamp again. You've been on and off for many, many years. You were on and off until you finally realized at one point, just like, this is the Kenny Aronoff brand now, and
Yeah.
I'm going to work that brand instead of just being devoted to Mellencamp and stuff. So that's quite a impressive feat,
Yeah, that
when
was
we were
hard.
talking about as a drummer, you're not a singer-songwriter, but to build up a brand that big, that's just like, I'm going to work this brand now because I can, because I've worked hard and I've built it into its own thing. That's an incredible thing. And I just want everyone to appreciate that. There's not many people who could do that. It's incredible.
Well, on that note, John told everybody in the band when I left the band, he says, mark my words, Kenny Aronoff's career is over. Because people, when they leave bands, it never works out where they, have a career. And
That's all you
in
needed
my
to hear, right?
yeah, in my case, oh, I didn't hear it till years later, but in
Ah,
my case, it was the opposite. My career, I built off of that and it exploded. And now, it's even gone into, as I do like inspirational speaking for corporations and
right.
kind of branched off into that too, which is very exciting. But
Yeah.
yeah, you know,
You want to
I,
tell me about your, I knew you before you ever had your tattoo and stuff, but I knew
oh
it
yeah.
was a big deal to you about getting it and why you got it and stuff like that. So I wanted people to hear about this story about like what it meant to you and stuff to get it.
Well,
You want to show
I
it to
remember.
us?
Yeah, let me see. It's the, is it right
There it
there?
is, folks.
There it is. That's an A, right? The letter A, and in the middle is uncommon. It says uncommon, and then on this, in here, and in here are two words called truth and honor. So I've been a pretty wild guy in rock and roll, enjoying my life, and and not always honorable in my relationships. But I remember I was teaching up at Banff, which is beautiful up in Canada. Yeah, Canada. Yeah, Canada. And I'm seeing this Canadian Indian, an actual Indian, and I can't remember, it was on his chest or on his powwow drum. It said truth and honor. And I went, oh, fuck. I was like, wow. I said, man, if I ever got a tattoo, I want to put that on my arm, but I want to make sure that I'm in that place. And so when I decided to get a tattoo, that's exactly what I put on my arm, truth and honor. And I thought it'd be cool to have the letter A because it's my name, Aronoff, but really what A was for, number one, the top, excellence, always striving to be
The
the best.
apex.
Yeah, the apex, right. And the uncommon part in there was that I read this book called Uncommon, and it was the Tony Dungy was the coach for the Indianapolis Colts. He also, I think, was a player and a coach, maybe for Pittsburgh. He may have coached Tampa Bay also. But anyway, he talked about his book was about people that do things in their own way that are different. Like I'd say you're uncommon, Kurt. You're not your normal guy. You're not your dad that went to a job and he'd come home every night and that kind of thing. Uncommon is we do things. Thank God we followed our own purpose and destiny, and acted on it, as opposed to going, oh no, I can't do that, when we said, oh yeah, I'm gonna do that. Uncommon is doing things that aren't the average thing, and you do things differently. And one example in the book was Art Modell, who owned the Steelers. I think it's Art Modell. I always forget the Browns and Steelers. The owner of the Steelers, maybe it was Art Rooney. Art Rooney was the guy, the Rooney family. So the bottom line is this guy was the owner, and somebody had written an article back in the 60s. Oh, these NFL owners, they only go after the big colleges, and they only are getting the players from these big colleges and this great talent in these smaller colleges, and they're ignoring them. And what was uncommon was Art Rooney said, I want to meet with this guy. They had lunch, and the guy explained more about it. Art Rooney thought about it, and he decided, okay, you know what? I am going to recruit. I'm oversimplifying. I am going to start looking at some of these small colleges. And that's where he built the Steeler team that won 4 Super Bowls with Terry Bradshaw, Franco Harris, Stallworth, Lynn Swann, all these guys. He grabbed these guys. And what happened was when he grabbed these guys from the smaller schools, they stuck together and stayed together. They stayed as a unit. They were a great team.
Played with
teamwork.
heart, right?
Yeah. And they were a family, and that team. Look at teams win Super Bowls and NBA playoffs or titles and Stanley Cups and World Series. Not individuals. It's the teams that win those things. And it's the individuals. You want to be the MVP on your team, but it's for the team. And so that's uncommon what he did. So I feel like I'm uncommon. I'm not.
It's a very common story, though, in rock and roll, music and creating and creativity, which is really what I've been pushing on this podcast, is what I call the creative element. And I think my opinion from watching life as long as I've lived is that creativity is really at the core of everything we do as people. And it's easy to see with someone like you because you're creating music all the time. But the uncommon element for rock and roll is a lot of people who got into it for expression and creativity in a world that they couldn't find it the typical way. And so they found it through this avenue. And there's a lot of uncommon people who are in this industry trying to express themselves and communicate to the world. You did, I think, the truth and honor, though, in the book you talk about the sex part of the book where touring was not great for relationships,
Yeah.
whether they be marriages
Yeah.
or relationships, that your love of being out there and playing and the energy and the excitement often would get in the way of relationships. And I think you were saying that the truth and honor was that you learned after enough time about being a better man and trying to follow
Yeah.
those principles in life.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Because there's a lot of sex stories in the book, folks. We're not talking
yeah.
about them all here, but
Yeah,
there's
I
a
mean,
lot of good stories in there.
yeah, I mean, I was just, I was just this rock and roller, this nice guy that was pretty much like always open for opportunity and fun. I mean, the way I look at it is like, I was young, the audience was young. You're playing in arenas and girls are throwing bras and they're throwing their underwear at you. And I mean, it was like it's like we were all dating each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should never have been married back then. I knew it in my first marriage. And by the way, I get along with all my exes. Everything's cool, but I just wasn't, I should have waited. But the thing is that, yeah, I told my first wife, I says, we can't get, she wanted to have a baby. I went, are you kidding me? We're about to blow up. I'm never going to be home. And you're going to be taking care of a baby, a house, and you're a lawyer. It's not going to work. She says, no, I want a baby. And Lisa wanted that. And thank God, because that's my only son.
Yeah.
And so she wanted to have a baby. So eventually after a year, I went, oh, I cannot not let her. She wants to have a son, or a child. So we did it. But yeah, it was way too much. And it was too strenuous. And I wasn't honorable. At first I was, and then, as things happened, and then that kind of dissolved, and then, and it just things, it was just, we were young.
Yeah, and it's part of the energy that's going on there. And it's rock and roll has always been intertwined with the sexuality, animal magnetism kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
And Nick has also worked for BoDeans, by the way. It's been great to watch. Nick will work with Kenny a lot of times when he's out with us. So a shout out to Nick. Great kid. You did a good job not being there, but he turned out great.
I know.
So that was good. I want to talk to you another thing about after, this big, when I read the book, I felt like I was just in like 40 years of your life, and just going through all these years and all these experiences. But one thing that stood out to me was when you got to the Brian Wilson and the Beatles shows, and like from where you started out watching Ed Sullivan and the Beatles, telling your mom, get me the Beatles, and then 50 years later, you're playing with Ringo and Paul McCartney on stage.
Oh, yeah.
And incredible.
Oh, my God. What a fantasy Cinderella story coming to life. I now get a call to do a CBS special called The Night That Changed America, where they're going to honor the Beatles for that Ed Sullivan show that I saw at 10 years old, that like 72 or 73 million people in North America saw. Now I get to play with Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr. I'm like, this is unbelievable. And I also got to play with Stevie Wonder, Joe Walsh, Dave Grohl, John Legend, Alicia Keys, Brad Paisley, on and on. And so, but oh man, there was a moment when I was done and I walk into the audience to look for my wife Gina to watch the rest of the show. And there's these elite seats. There's Tom Hanks and his wife, Ringo Starr, his wife, Paul McCartney's girlfriend, George Harrison's widow, Danny Harrison, Julian Lennon and Yoko Ono, John Lennon's widow, and then there was like Johnny Depp, Sean Penn, and Tom Cruise. They're all there right in the middle of me. I'm like, oh my God, what's happening, dudes? And Ringo is going like, bravo, Kenny, bravo, great job, man. And I had played with him like the night before at the Grammys, and a couple weeks prior I'd met him, but I never had a kind of this moment. So I go up to him and everyone's looking at me. I get on one knee and I'm trying to think of what I'm going to say. And he goes, oh man, that's okay, Kenny, I'm already married. Like, okay. And so I said, listen, you're the reason why I play drums. You're the reason why I play rock and roll. You and the Beatles set me on a course at age 10 that I've been on ever since. And I have to thank you. Thank you for making me aware of who I am and what I was meant to do. And then I got up and walked away. And, I started thinking, you know what? in order to be really, really great at something, really great, and to be successful and stay successful, you have to love what you do. It has to be your bliss, your deepest desires, your truth, your purpose, whatever you want to call it. And when you act on that, you will be unstoppable, undeniable, and authentic. And that's exactly the guy I am, and that's exactly the guy you are. If you think about it, you followed your desires. It's what you are. That's why you're so good at what you're doing. And that's what I try to encourage people to do the same thing.
Yeah, kids sometimes or young players will come up to me and ask me, like you were on tour with U2 and all these great moments in your life. You work with all these great producers. What's the best part of it? What's the best thing? And
Yeah.
my answer to them is always the same. It's like nothing beats that I've experienced. Nothing that I experienced beats hitting that power chord at midnight with the audience on its feet. And that's you can do that anywhere, whether it's a small town club or a massive arena or stadium show,
Yeah.
whatever it is. It's kind of the best part of what we do. What would you say to kids, or what do you give them for that answer when they say, like, give me the secret, Kenny? What's the best thing of this, what you've learned?
Kind of what I just said. I said, listen, if it's
Yeah.
really who you are and what you want to do, I'm telling you, you have to do it. Because if you don't, you're going to come back to it, or you'll be miserable. And life is only that short. So get the most value out of it. If it's like just because you want to be on stage doesn't mean you're going to end up on stage, but you should go after it as hard as you possibly can.
Right.
Because that's will give you more joy in the end than doing something you don't like doing. And even if you're successful, it's not going to be the same as if you do what you love doing, who you are, what you designed.
Yeah.
Basically, what are you friggin' doing here on this planet? Figure
Yeah.
that out first.
Yeah, and if you're in it for just the money or the fame, you're probably
Yeah.
not going to last in this because you're not in it for that shared energy between a band
Yeah.
and the audience. And that's, to me, what rock and roll was always about, was that shared energy that happens. So, incredible story. I want to ask you a few last questions that I ask everyone. So they're kind of
Yeah.
generic, but so I know you're short on time, so you don't have to go too long and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
how do you find time for life and time for work? Have you ever been able to solve that riddle?
No.
No.
No. I'm addicted to my work. I'm addicted to it's getting crazier now, because now I'm at this point where there's only a few people that have it's not an ego thing, but I've done so much,
Yeah.
and it's been for so long, for over 4 decades, that now there's other things coming my way that are like, for example, you can't just get a publishing deal. It's not that easy. But I had a big enough a story and diverse, the same guy who records with Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, Chris Christopherson, Waylon Jennings in the country world, doesn't usually go on tour with the Smashing Pumpkins,
Right.
or play with Leonard Bernstein,
Right.
and then play with the Beatles. I mean, it's so bizarre. So yeah, I get a lot of opportunities coming my way. It's very hard for me to say no. So I'm like overworked, and well, as you could see, the schedule this was crazy. And so I don't have a balance. I've tried and I've worked on it, but I really don't. I'm addicted to my work, and and it's so much fun. The only thing I try to do is stay. I have 8 steps to being a healthy, a healthy life is a wealthy life. I have 8 steps to being healthy, and one of the things that I have to really work at is sleep, because that's the only time you can repair. So, but I'm that's very important. You've got to have your mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual health locked down. It's like I call it being Tom Brady. Before you even walk on the field, before he even walks on the field, for 365 days a year, he's living a lifestyle of Tom Brady. It's not like the Super Bowl's over and he waits till spring. 24/7, he is doing it, just like I'm doing it, just like you're doing it. Living your life every day with this excitement and joy for what you're going to do. Write songs, record songs, perform songs, and everything that it has added to that musical, lifestyle. It's awesome. So yeah, it's very difficult to find balance.
Okay, next question. What was your worst idea that you ever had, but that looked great on paper, that you thought was going to be great, but just turned out like not so good? Do you have anything like any memory of something like that?
Absolutely. I can name about 5 relationships that look good on paper. It didn't quite
This is
didn't
going to
quite
be
pan
great.
yeah, didn't quite work out. I'm not saying it was my fault or their fault, but it looked great on paper. But oh my God, was I wrong?
Yeah,
Can you relate? I'm not meaning you. I'm talking
yeah.
about the audience.
Right. And last question I'll ask you, in gaining in life, is it better to have like a gain in life of like wisdom, growth, or is it better to have a financial gain? Which one means the most to you?
I would go with, oh my God, that's a tricky because we're talking about 2021. I was going to go with wisdom because with wisdom you have a better understanding of everything, and ultimately we're human beings, and a lack of understanding of who you are will cause you to make wrong decisions. I don't believe in mistakes, so they're all just events that get you, where you're trying to go in life. But I think that just pure financial is not going to solve your problems. I would go with wisdom and experience and knowledge. Wisdom spiritually and mentally. Because with that, you have the possibility to make money.
Sure.
Just making money and no wisdom can leave you empty. That's no question. On the other hand, the beautiful thing about money is it just makes your life more convenient. When you're a workaholic like me, then, I can sleep in a nice bed. I can drive a nice car. I don't have to worry about what doctor to go to. And if I'm really, I like to fly first class. So,
what you're saying,
I can afford to do.
I heard Johnny Depp say it once, like money can't buy you happiness, but it can buy you a nice yacht and drive you right up next to it. And that was, I think, what you're trying to say there.
Yeah.
Hey, Kenny, man, thanks so much for joining us and talking to us today. It's I know you well, and you're a dear friend to the BoDeans family and my family, and we love you, man. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in and watching. Kenny, Sex, Drums, and Rock and Roll is the book. Show the Fanzine magazine, too, behind you that you showed me. He's got another...
It's a book. It's a kind of a softcover book.
Oh.
But it's a Modern Drummer put it out.
Modern drummer legend, Kenny Aronoff.
It's a lot of pictures. There's a lot of charts. I was on 4 covers. It also is honored. My mom just passed away, so I honor her. It's dedicated to her.
That's brilliant.
But it's got it's a great picture. I mean, there's so many great pictures. This is me when I played with Sticks. Another interesting moment in my life. I think there's a picture in here at the BoDeans.
Wow.
It's probably with maybe not. I don't know. There was in the other book. Yeah. Oh, you recognize this picture. You may not be in it, but you remember that?
Yeah, that was the Barbados shoot. That's on the screen here too. We went, John Barbados gave us a bunch of clothes and we got to be models for a day in Nashville and shot a bunch of pictures, man. It turned out.
That turned out great. One of the best band pictures I've ever taken was with us in Nashville at that museum with the pillars. Right, that was badass. That's a rock band. Well, listen, thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
I love you, and we'll be playing soon.
Yes, we will. You take care of yourself on the road. We'll see you soon.
See you. Bye.
Bye. This has been Staring at the World podcast. I hope you enjoyed our interviews with Kenny Aronoff. Man, what great stories. I was lucky to be part of it. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you can hit that subscribe button and join us for future podcasts because we're having a great time talking to really interesting people and telling great stories. So please join us.